And it's not just about making people fall in love with themselves and their business. It's making them fall in love with their customer. Because the more you know that person that you're trying to help, the better you can serve them. It's not about whether or not you understand the concepts of your service or your business or your offering, but what does the client really need? What are their pain points? What keeps them up at night? How can you solve those problems? Not just putting out a cool product, which is awesome, but you have to think of it from the standpoint of your consumer. Are they going to like it? Are they going to need it? What do they need it for?
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Pontau. Each week, I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Cupid Hayes, known as the guardian angel of brand. She is a brand and identity coach, growth hacker, business strategist, and sought-after speaker with over 30 years of experience transforming how brands are built, distributed, and monetized. As the former CMO and VP of Business Development at Missing Channel Media Group, a global multi-platform media distribution company, she led strategy, brand development, international partnerships, and expansion efforts, redefining market reach and audience engagement. Beyond the corporate sphere, Cupid is also a respected actress and award-winning casting director who has played a pivotal role in advocating for creatives. She has served on the Los Angeles Board of Directors at SAG-AFTRA, championing the rights and protections of media professionals, and continues to serve on several committees. As founder and CEO of Arrow Advising, Cupid casts businesses and individuals into their own lives, helping them fall in love with themselves and their business. She empowers clients to go from commoditization to authentic connection, ensuring they maximize profitability while maintaining relevancy. Congrats on helping people fall in love with themselves and their businesses, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Thank you so much, Cal.
So I love that helping people fall in love with themselves and their businesses, because I think especially for a lot of entrepreneurs, they're getting they start off in that honeymoon period where things are fun and exciting. And when they realize how much work is going on with the business, they can quickly kind of fall out of love with the grind and all the hard work. And I think a lot of that could be solved or makes it easier if they have a stronger brand for their business and brand for themselves going forward. So why do you consider branding the steak and not the sizzle, as you put it?
Yes. So we now live in a society with everyone thinking they need to live an Insta life. I call it an Insta life. Everyone thinks they need to be in social media. They need to constantly be out there. They need to put up a facade to get business. And it's really about not selling the sizzle, but selling the steak. Because you see a lot of people in social media for whom they're very popular, they're very famous, but that doesn't really equal sales or longevity or profitability.
Yeah, I think especially as more and more people are doing this and people are able to spot the inauthenticity of it, and they're acting, people are craving that connection on a real human to human level with people.
Yeah.
And as I've mentioned before, if there's a super polished facade, polished mirror like surface, there's no way for people to latch on and connect with that. It's like trying to scale a skyscraper that's like glass and concrete. Like there's no feel to grip. You're just going to slide right off. You're going to bounce off like a bird on a windshield. So you need those cracks and rough spots and gaps where people can actually get a foothold and connect. And so I think it's something that a lot of people still misunderstand the importance of.
Yes. I mean, it's about making your message. You know, people think they need to cover up all the things that they think are not perfect about them, but it's really about using those things to your advantage. And it's not that you have to go online and overshare and, you know, tell everyone your sob story, but explain what made you you. what were the things that happened in your life that may not have been so great, but you use them to empower yourself to success in the present.
And I think it's important, that distinction, because it's not just going out there and complaining about what you've been through or what you're struggled with, but it's how you learned from it and got better and are using that to do something for other people,
Yes.
or making an impact in a positive way, that separates the oversharing or the sob stories to like making your mess your message, because it's those, we connect with people who've been through similar tribulations and challenges,
Right.
and have come out stronger for it, and aren't being a victim about it, but making it as like a driving force. And so I think there's people, one of the common mistakes I've seen is people just not understanding how they're supposed to include like the message or the lesson they learned from those experiences. So before we got on the call here, you mentioned that we're working with a client right now who's had a big 180. Like,
Yes.
what are some like success stories you've had with your clients and helping them build these brands for themselves?
Yes. So starting way back, when I was just getting out of college, I was actually working for my alumni association, Columbia College Chicago. And the wonderful thing about that institution is that you can design your own major. So I was working with a student who didn't know what she wanted to be. She didn't know what she wanted to study. She was into fashion. She was into costumes, but she wasn't quite sure what she wanted to do. And I just kept talking to her, kept engaging her. And I found out that one of her hobbies was dressing up in costume. And I mean full-on costume. Like it was a tabby cat. And she dressed up in this costume, and that's how she felt comfortable. It was like a robe, but then she added feet and paws and a tail, and it was magnificent. And she made this all herself in her spare time. And I said, well, why aren't you just making costumes? Like, you're so magnificent at this. And it was sort of like a light went off, and she said, I can do that? And I said, yeah, you can do that. And so I helped her craft a program inside the college where she could take a little bit of fashion, she could take a little bit of costuming, she could take a little bit of design, and we basically crafted a major for her. And she is now working for Disney.
Wow.
So it's really amazing. So I heard from her several years ago and found out that she was working for Disney, doing their costume creation.
And so what was an amazing story, and I think it makes a lot of sense that someone who, when they put so much into something on the personal side of things and have that level of not just quote unquote passion, but also the proactiveness to do it. They don't just care about, but actually like walking the walk and not just talking the talk. That, I'm not surprised that when you helped her focus that on her studies and a career path, that she's excelling, because it's that combination of interest and action that actually get the results. So what would you say was like the like an aha moment or a turning point in that process of working with her that really that stands out in your mind? Because I imagine there's a lot of other people that are in that situation where they have some things that they're really interested in, and like on the personal side, don't realize there's a professional outlet for them. So what are the ways you help people kind of find that focus?
It's all about understanding your why. It's really, why do you do the things you do? Why are you passionate about these things? Is it going to be a service to help someone? Is it the creation of a product? Where do you fit into the marketplace? Is it something that people would pay you for? And all it takes is a little bit of research. And especially now with things like AI and all these new technologies, you can just ask, I like to do this, 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 and this. What would be the perfect job for me? What would be a career path for me to take? And see what you get.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's something that I think there's especially for someone trying to start a business, a lot of, especially in like a lot of like startups that get are out there, they don't research enough about like if there's really like a demand or like a need for it. Like, is there a real like use case for it? They're going out and starting something because they think it's cool, and they just kind of assume, oh, other people will think that will want to buy this, but they'll see value in it, and they're making a product that doesn't really solve a problem for people. So doing that research and looking up, okay, I like doing X, Y, and Z. I'm good at these sort of things. Is there a real market for it? Is this something that actually people would pay money for? Is an important first step that unfortunately a lot of founders don't think to do before they sink a bunch of their time and effort and money into building something that ends up not having a real market.
Yes. And it's not just about making people fall in love with themselves and their business. It's making them fall in love with their customer. Because the more you know that person that you're trying to help, the better you can serve them. It's not about whether or not you understand the concepts of your service or your business or your offering, but what does the client really need? What are their pain points? What keeps them up at night? How can you solve those problems? Not just putting out a cool product, which is awesome, but you have to think of it from the standpoint of your consumer. Are they going to like it? Are they going to need it? What do they need it for? And figure out who your ideal customer is and really do the work. And I call it, coming from an entertainment background, I call it character work. You really have to develop who it is that you're serving. You know, what do they wear? What do they drink? Where do they hang out? What do they think? What are their pain points? And who are they around? Who are their friend groups? And that's what you use to market your service or product.
And I think when you're talking about brand as well, it's important because people, especially when they think about like their personal brand or a brand for a solopreneur business, they think they have to find that balance between authentically representing themselves, but also showing that you understand your audience and that it's something that you're showing that you're like them. There's a commonality, or you show that understanding, like you mentioned, of who you're trying to work with. Because the reality is people are looking for something, solve a problem for themselves. They don't really necessarily care as much about like you, as long, except in relation to how it builds that trust and that connection. So if you're just having a brand that's only about you and it's very like all focused on who you are and not about the people you're trying to work with, that can be a detractor, because it's, unless you're trying to sell to yourself, your target audience is not going to be you. So you need to show who you authentically are is like who the people you're trying to work with authentically are, and how you have this shared experience that makes you the right fit for each other. And so there's this balancing act that brands have to manage, and it's so easy to have that be out of whack, and then things don't work out the way you expected.
Yes, and that is the perfect example of the difference between brand and marketing. Marketing, the focus is outside of you. With brand, the focus is inside of you. I once heard it said, and it was a great quote, the difference between brand and marketing is marketing is asking someone out on a date. Brand is the reason they say yes.
I like that.
So brand is all about you. And a lot of companies don't spend the time to really dig into who they are as a business and getting their employees on board to who they are and making sure that their brand matches your brand. Because if you don't do that, you're going to end up with a lot of turnover and a lot of unhappy customers as a result of having unhappy employees.
Yeah, there's that lesson is one I think a lot of companies have forgotten or not taken to heed, that if they want the increased profits and growth and success on the bottom line, it starts with taking care of your employees. Because if your employees are taken care of, they'll take better care of your clients, and your clients will be sticking around more and spending more and referring more, so you get more of the revenue you want.
Right.
But then the key to taking care of your employees or knowing how to build the right team and stuff is understanding your brand and what your company stands for, because then you'll know who the right fits are for your business,
Right.
and hiring for that fit, not just for the skills, because you can teach the skills, but you can't teach the fit.
Exactly.
And so many companies they're creating these environments that where employees aren't feeling that connection. And so they either leave or aren't working as hard as they could be, or actually actively driven away because of the toxic environment and stuff. And could all be solved with investing more and understanding the brand, and then actively communicating that and acting on it, and not just having it be like a poster in the break room sort of thing.
Exactly. I mean, your core values, that's what you're hiring. That's what I say it's casting. My background is casting. And so I really apply all of those things in the entertainment world to the corporate world and beyond. And it really comes down to making sure that your people are your people, that you find your tribe, that they support you, they share those values, they want to serve in the same way that you want to serve, and that they understand their value in the story that you're telling.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of plenty of companies I've read read stories about where the employees don't really understand or aren't explained or don't feel that connection to the worker, that they're contributing to something more important than just like the bottom line for the business or like the profits of, and that just not that might work for some, but it doesn't really inspire the best from a lot of people out there. And it's not surprised that companies like quiet quitting and people not really putting in like 100%, or just like the amount of dissatisfaction at work that employees are experiencing these days is something that the leadership needs to address if they want to actually get the growth and success that they care about so much.
Yes, exactly.
So if you're when you're working with someone on like figuring out their personal brand, or working with a company on their brand, what's like the first step you take, or what's like a good starting point to get on the right path to solving some of these issues?
Well, the process I walk people through is quite simple, and I call it the aim for authenticity process. It consists of three things: brand, story, and impact. And when you start talking about brand, it's all about your top three core values. I walk them through, what is it that you really value outside of your business, just personally or as a company? What are the things that you value? Enumerate those and make sure everyone knows what those are. And then it's, in a sentence, just describe what you stand for. Because a lot of corporations are being canceled because they don't have the courage to stand for who they are. And they're running around trying to chase the next trend instead of making sure everyone knows their own identity. And then it's, what makes your business different? What makes you special? Why do people come to you and no one else? And if you're a company and you're just starting out, or you've been in business for just a couple of years, make sure you get that feedback from your clients. Ask them, send out a survey. What do you like about us exactly? What could we improve upon? How would you pitch us to someone else? How would you make a referral? And why would you make a referral to us? You have to get all of those data points and you have to use them to your advantage, and not to establish who you are, but to confirm that you are telling the right story. And then we go through your narrative, and that leans more towards marketing, but it's really, what is it that you want to say and why should anybody care? What is it that you're selling and why should anybody buy it? And it's really honing those things in and making sure you know why you're telling that particular story. And your story can change. You can introduce a new product and explain why you're introducing a new product. So I work with companies that don't just start out, but sometimes halfway through, they realize they need a redirect. And lastly, I take them through impact. And that's all about placement. And it's what I said earlier about finding your perfect customer. Where are they? Are they online? Are they on TikTok? Are they in your local community? Where do they hang out? Where do you place that story and your message to have the best and highest return?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Cupid. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection Podcast, please like, leave a review, and share it. If you'd like to connect with myself or Cupid, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.
Thank you so much, Karl.